The path to NATO and European Union membership remains open for Ukraine, but not until the war ends. That's the message from Germany's incoming Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, who made it clear that active conflict remains a red line for accession into either alliance. In an interview with Handelsblatt published on April 12th, Merz stated bluntly a country in a state of war cannot become either a member of NATO or a member of the European Union. The future chancellor, who leads Germany's center-right, the Christian Democratic Union Party, acknowledged Ukraine's European aspirations. Still, he cautioned that such ambitions must be put on hold until the fighting stops. Ukraine is a very large European country, but it is a European country that is at war. The promise of joining the European Union remains valid, as does the perspective of joining NATO. But for both of these to happen, the war must end first. UK Defense Secretary John Healey on April 11th at a key meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at NATO headquarters in Brussels announced that NATO's allies had pledged over $23.8 billion in fresh military aid to Ukraine. Healey was joined by NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte and German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius.
And the new pledges of military aid announced today through the UDCG total over 21 billion euros. A record boost in military funding for Ukraine, and we're also surging that support to the frontline fight.
Healey's Ukrainian counterpart, Rustem Umerov, said Kiev was thankful for those new pledges.
We're thankful for the coalition capabilities that has been presented today to the lead nations, to the contributing nations, and it is one of the largest assistance that we're getting. We today, as John have announced, have heard the pledges of 21 billion in euro, which is one of the largest, and we're thankful to each nation that has provided this support.
NATO's Secretary General, Rutte, also welcomed the substantial commitments already made, noting that a significant portion of the assistance now flows through NATO's newly established Security Assistance and Training Command for Ukraine. Based in Wiesbaden, Germany, the Secretary General said continued support was essential. Efforts to negotiate a just and lasting peace continue. In the meantime, our backing for Ukraine must not waver. He also encouraged allies to boost their contributions through NATO's comprehensive assistance package for Ukraine, noting stepped-up European efforts in 2025. Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Andrei Sybiha, said on April 12th that his country's membership in NATO should not be off the agenda. Speaking on a panel at the Antalya Diplomatic Forum, Sybiha added that Ukraine's battle-experienced army would be the cheapest possible contribution to transatlantic security.
Ukrainian membership in NATO should not be off the agenda. That's about transatlantic security. That's about our contribution. Ukraine now has 110 brigades with daily combat experience. And of course, it will be a realistic, true contribution in a future transatlantic security. And by the way, the most cheapest one.
Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has called Ukraine's push towards NATO's a grave mistake, describing it as one of the fundamental causes of the ongoing war.
When we speak about eliminating root causes of any conflict, including Ukrainian conflict, this is the only way to resolve the problem and to establish long-lasting peace. Remove root causes. President Trump was the first and so far, I think, almost the only one among the Western leaders who repeatedly, with conviction, several times stated that it was a huge mistake to pull Ukraine into NATO. And this is one of the root causes which we quoted.
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was founded in Washington, D.C. in 1949 by 12 countries, including the U.S., UK, France, Canada, and several Western European nations. Its original aim was clear: to counter the growing influence and territorial ambitions of the Soviet Union in post-war Europe. The core principle underpinning the alliance, which currently has 32 member countries, is collective defense. An attack against one is considered an attack against all, while NATO doesn't maintain its own standing army. It enables joint military responses and coordinates strategic planning across member states. NATO forces have intervened in international crises, notably supporting the UN during the conflict in the former Yugoslavia between 1992 and 2004. The alliance continues to conduct joint exercises and plans to maintain collective readiness. The prospect of Ukraine joining NATO has long been a point of friction between the West and Russia. Moscow has repeatedly opposed the idea, arguing that NATO's eastward expansion threatens its security and brings Western military forces uncomfortably close to Russian borders. In 2008, NATO stated that Ukraine could eventually join the alliance, a position that provoked sharp criticism from the Kremlin. The issue gained renewed urgency after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. President Volodymyr Zelensky called on NATO to fast-track Ukraine's membership, but NATO leaders, including then Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, maintained that Kiev could only join in the long term, that only after the war ends. At a defense summit in Brussels in February, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth remarked that NATO membership for Ukraine was not a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. His comments triggered pushback from several allies. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said he regretted the decision being declared without broader consultation, while Sweden's Defense Minister, Paul Johnson, insisted that Ukraine's accession was not off the table. However, Zelensky in February 2025 had made a striking offer to secure NATO membership. If to achieve peace, you really need me to give up my post, and I'm ready. I can trade it for NATO's membership if there are such conditions as war grinds on and peace talks loom. Ukraine's NATO's future remains the ultimate bargaining chip, one that could define not just the end of this conflict, but the shape of Europe's security order for decades to come.